back to Women's Financial Empowerment Group. I'm your host, Ruth Agbeloso, and I'm so happy that you stopped by my channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about debt freedom, and my special guest has achieved that. So I wanted to share her story with all of you, and hopefully it will inspire you to also become debt-free. My guest today is Sharon Maloney. And I'm connecting her. Hi, Sharon, welcome.
Welcome, hi everyone.
Hi, so Sharon is from, tell everybody where you're from. Tell everybody a little bit about you.
I am from Hong Kong. I was born and raised here. I'm 42 and I'm a single mom to a 12-year-old. And I'm a teacher, I'm a kindergarten teacher. I originally started as a language teacher in Hong Kong, teaching all ages. And part of my story is that I went into debt because I wanted to change my qualifications. I wanted to add to them. So I was a language teacher for almost 20 years, both in Hong Kong and in the UK. And then when I came back to Hong Kong about 10 years ago, I decided that I needed to add to my qualifications to basically get more money. Okay, third time lucky.
So Sharon, you were sharing with us how you got into debt because you wanted to further your education. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say that was the main tangible reason that I got into debt. I needed to take out but in Hong Kong, we don't have student loans as such, like they do in the in the US. So I had to take out a personal loan from the bank to cover the fees for university, because I wanted to do a master's in education. And I would say that was primarily the main debt. But having, looked back and looked at my money habits, I would say there was probably a really bad money mindset behind that. I had a lot of bad money habits in the first place. So I wasn't very mindful of my spending. There was I accumulated a lot of credit card debt on top of that. Looking back, there were no particular.
What is happening? Sorry about that, Sharon. We got cut off. You can continue. I don't see your picture. I don't see your picture, but you can just continue talking. So you were saying that you had a lot of bad money habits. You had a lot of credit cards.
Yeah, so it was mainly bad spending habits, and not really understanding, how to budget and how to save, for the long term. I could save for small things, but I didn't. I think I was in this YOLO mindset, hey, I deserve this. I'm a single mom. My life is tough. I deserve this pair of shoes, or I deserve to go out for a night out with my girlfriend. So there's a lot of that, a lot of that probably creeped in, and that creeping in of and the mindset more than anything, I think makes it much harder to break. Looking back, I think that the big debt of paying off school fees, that was fairly straightforward because the personal loan from the bank here they set it up so that you're not really paying a high interest rate, but you have to pay in installments, and you've got a fixed term of 12 months. So that was fairly straightforward, but it was all the extras that I was adding on top, which added a much larger amount than I ever thought could happen. Yeah, so that's how I got into debt. And I would say probably it was a good maybe 6 years of debt, that I was paying off. I'm just looking at the numbers here, and sorry, that's my laptop there. It was probably close to about $50,000 US in total. Maybe 38 and a half of that was probably university debt, to pay off for university. The rest was credit card. Yeah.
Okay. So what was that moment, or what was it that made you decide to get your act together and to pay off your
Um,
debt? Like what happened? How did you come to that decision?
I think actually it kind of went hand in hand with a lot of things. Like, you know, when you're in your 30s, I mean, I'm 42 now. I think I got to my mid 30s and I'm looking at my son and realizing actually a lot of the stuff that I grew up with, I was quite privileged. You know, I had a family where, you know, my dad had a job with the government, so he was very comfortable. You know, he had enough money. He wasn't by any stretch of the imagination a rich man, but he was comfortable. And I think I was comparing the upbringing that I had with the one that I was giving my child and realizing, you know, actually there are a lot of things that I can't give him, like, you know, a really good education. In Hong Kong, education is very competitive. You know, international private schools are really expensive here. They probably, that with rent, probably pushes up most people's living expenses really significantly. You're looking at paying anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 a month in school fees alone.
Oh
And
wow.
that's not include, I mean, probably the same amount again for rent.
Wow.
And at that time, I was in a fairly low-paying job. I had job hopped, you know, sort of every 2 or 3 years, slowly getting an increase each year. But I wasn't very happy with my jobs. I was, you know, it didn't feel like I had found a place where I was really comfortable. And I remember it kind of coincided with one particular job where I was a teacher trainer for a language school. And looking back and thinking, you know, there's got to be more to this, you know, job satisfaction, better pay, doing something that I really enjoy doing. I love teaching people. You know, I'm a kindergarten teacher now, and I basically segued from teaching adults into teaching young children with my qualifications. But it meant that I had to take a concerted step down in terms of pay, because kindergarten teachers, I think all around the world, are not paid very much. But in order to qualify for that, to get that qualification, I needed to work in that role for 2 years with a very, very low pay. So I took a step back and I was basically living hand to mouth. I mean, that was the main challenge, was that month on month, I was really, you know, cutting it very fine. I had no savings. You know, I was living already in a very, very low cost area of Hong Kong on an island. We don't, you know, it was such a small island, you don't need to have a car. So, you know, I was using public transport to get around. I was buying, you know, from the low budget end of grocery shops and, you know, in the wet market here, which is like a farmer's market there. But it's very, very, you know, it's where you get the fresh food, but it's also very, very cheap. And I think it kind of went hand in hand with, you know, this big life, you know, midlife crisis of like, am I in the right role? You know, am I doing right by my son? You know, look at the life that I'm living. I'm kind of living by the seat of my pants month to month. Is this really what I want for myself? So that was a really big wake up call. And I sort of around that time, I met my partner that I'm with now. And, you know, this is a man who he's very different to me. He's very fiscally careful and mindful about what he's spending his money on. He ingrained a lot of good habits into me. He taught me, I mean, it's strange, you know, like coming from the background that I had, that there was very little financial education there. I look back and my parents would say very generalized things like, yes, you have to save money, but nobody actually sat me down and said, this is how compound interest works. You know, if you start saving at 20, by the time you are 40, you will be very comfortable. Nobody explained this to me. And if they had, I think I would have really changed my mindset back then. And now, of course, you know, there's all this social media. You've got Instagram accounts, you know, people doing great stuff on Facebook like you are, you know, setting up empowerment groups for finance. If this had been around 20 years ago, I think my whole situation would have been really, really different. I mean, I look at my friends now who are 10, 15 years younger than me at work, and they have already reached this stage because they have these resources available to them that I didn't have. And I had to do a lot of the legwork myself. I really had to, you know, the books that I was reading, the websites I was looking at, you know, there are some great ones out there, but they were very geared to a US market or a UK audience. There's nothing in Hong Kong that that's set up to educate people financially, especially if you are in a margin like being a single mother. So this was the main issue that I had was that. Well, I basically I think I just did a lot of Google searches, and then I looked on Facebook groups. I found yours. I also made sure that I changed a lot about my lifestyle. I stopped going out a lot. I changed. I had to cut out a lot of toxic friends. People who had very different lifestyles to me, who were basically inflating, my budget for silly reasons. People who I think they're trying to keep up with the Joneses, that kind of mentality, where you have to impress people and stuff. That was a really big factor, I think, in a lot of credit cards that I got. And I think once I kind of cut those relationships out, it really did help my situation significantly. I felt like there was finally room to breathe. I wasn't living this lifestyle that I couldn't afford. And once I started reading a lot of the literature and I basically made that my feed, on my social media. I basically immersed myself in financial literacy to put myself basically in the right mind frame. You need to be around people who are going to create a community that are going to support your journey, that are going to praise you or celebrate those little small wins that you have. And I think also being around, choosing people around you who have a similar mindset, that they also are trying to be more mindful about how they're living their life, makes a huge difference. It becomes much more enriching. You have deeper relationships as a result. Well, and yeah, I guess it's that's what adulting is, right? It's how you become a better person in all ways, not just in one particular way.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of pinpoint something that you mentioned, a major point that you mentioned, changing your friends, changing your environment, your social environment, because this is something that I've talked about on one of my live videos that I do, how we do the weekly chat, which we're starting up again this week, thankfully. Just that sense of pressure that you get sometimes just from being around certain people and feeling like you have to spend and stuff like that. So I really applaud you for taking that stand and being able to pull back and realize, hey, I'm not being true to myself. And I think that's where what it comes down to, being true to yourself, knowing what you really want and the lifestyle that you want to accomplish, knowing that you're not there yet and knowing that you have to work towards that. So I really applaud you for that.
Thanks.
So what were some of the challenges you faced when you finally buckled down and said, hey, I am going to get out of debt? What were some of the challenges that you faced during that time?
So the main ones, I think, were putting into place better habits. For example, writing things down. I had to go down the pen and paper route of accounting for every single dollar. Being really disciplined. More than anything, I am very much the person who's like, I'll do it tomorrow. I procrastinate, or it's not a big deal. I'll get around to it. And of course I never did. And this was a really good exercise in instilling some sense of discipline. And I think more than that is, my partner keeps telling me it's about consistency. You have to keep showing up. You have to be consistent. You have to do it no matter how hard it is, because otherwise that habit doesn't stick with you. And it's for all things, it's about healthy eating, exercise. It's the same mindset. Like, you have to be consistent. So that was really tough for me, because I kept thinking, it's, I'll do it. It's easy. It's no big deal. And of course it isn't. It's really hard. And I got, putting it down on pen to paper. And I think also cutting out a lot of things that I just thought were small luxuries. So, for example, shoes, a nice dress here and there, or maybe just a quick holiday somewhere. So I really, knuckled down for a good year and a half, 2 years, not buying very much. I think when I look back, I also took my son out of school, a private school, really early on in primary school. And we switched him to a local government school where I don't have to pay any fees. And that, for me, was both, it was bittersweet, because I thought, okay, this is really where this is going to be a big test of whether I've done the right thing. Because education, there's such an emphasis on education here. And I wasn't sure, was that going to be something that is going to be to his detriment later on? I mean, I'm happy to say now he went through primary school in the local government school, and I was very, very happy with it. I was very lucky that it was one that, while it was still fairly traditional, it was a good school. It was a nice community, and he survived fairly intact. He got what he needed to get out of it. But the ultimate goal of me doing all this education and going back to school was that the international schools that I wanted to work for and I had my eye on was a through train. So while I can teach in kindergarten, they would also offer reduced fees for putting him into secondary school. And that was part of the bigger game plan, thinking that this would be a potential benefit later on. And I'm happy to say that's exactly what happened. I managed to get into a good job last year. Yeah, hooray! And that was one of the benefits, which I cannot underestimate, like how powerful that was for me, to know that my son is going to have, a private school education. That was a big deal for me, last year, getting that and signing that contract, because I think that was just the mental impact of how that's going to benefit him, for the next 5-6 years, and in the future. It's a big deal. Yeah, so it was hard to give up a lot of small things. It was necessary though, and I think people have to remember is how short is this short-term discomfort in terms of what you're going to reap long-term. Yes. Can you buckle down, for a year or two? Because really, at the end of the day, it's not a long time. It goes by so quickly, especially if you have children. You know how quickly they grow. A year passes by in a blink of an eye. And I think what it did help me to do is I became much more creative in how I looked for things, in terms of like recipes, meal preparation, how I created holidays at home, the experiences that we could do on a budget, those all changed. So instead of having these big, nice, fancy holidays away, it was more about, a nice day out, a picnic, going to the beach, going for a hike, rather than, some big luxury hotel with all the bells and whistles and so on. I mean, it was tough.
It does sound like it was tough, but you did it, and that is amazing. So let me just be clear. You said that it took you 1.5 to 2 years to get out of debt. I would say maybe 2 years of like solid, careful budgeting, putting aside money for the future. I tried to save at the same time as paying off debt, because this was what I knew. I mean, even if it was just small things. So I think the first year I started off with that 52-week money challenge. I did that just to see if I could save a small amount. If you can instill that discipline, then it means that you're okay for the bigger amounts later on. Okay.
And at the same time, I was still, because when you have very little and you have a lot of debt to pay, there isn't very much room to save, but you need to know how to have that habit in the first place. So even if it's just saving coins, that's enough. I mean, in Hong Kong, we've got small denomination notes, like I guess it's like similar to your $1 notes. So I was saving all of my you know, $10 notes and $50 notes in Hong Kong. I was saving all of those. And that's still a habit that I do now, because each month it racks up to a small amount that's enough to put away to fun money, you know, or buying yourself something nice. But you know, it was quite eye-opening to see how much money you can make from that at the end of the year. All those coins do add up, you know, they add up to a nice tidy amount that is, it could be, for example, your Christmas fund, or you know, buying yourself a nice staycation somewhere, you know, a treat, you know, something that's gonna make you feel better. But you know what I know now is that you got to, you know, those fun experiences, you have to earn them in some way. Yeah. You can't just say, oh, I got to treat myself. No, it's not how it works. You have to say something you got to work towards. You know, it makes that experience so much nicer when you do get it.
Yeah, I feel it's like you're reprogramming your mind. And sorry, there's a little feedback, but hopefully our audience can really hear us clearly. But I feel like it's a whole mental transformation. And
absolutely, yeah.
And instead of feeling like you're depriving yourself, you're feeling like, hey, I have a goal in mind, so I'm working towards that goal. It's not that I'm trying to deprive myself or punish myself, but I'm trying to work towards something better and bigger, better. So I think having that mindset probably helped you as well, because, you know, the way how you did it,
absolutely,
you know, is a really great strategy, I think, you know. And that budgeting, you know, I talk a lot about budgeting in our group, and videos on budgeting, and I will continue to do videos on budgeting, because I believe that for a lot of people it could be a very daunting task, but once you get in the habit of it, like you were saying, it can really be transformative. So
it is, absolutely. I actually found it very therapeutic as well, you know, coming home at the end of the day and writing down in my, because I bought a budgeting book off Amazon. I think it's like the Fox Budgeter. It's a great one. It's not very expensive, but it has a lot of different areas that you can focus on. So it's not just about your expenses, but also about your financial goals. And I think one thing that I would like to learn more about is, you know, knowing how to set clear financial goals, and you know, tying that in with things like sinking funds, learning how to work backwards, you know, working up towards those goals, and how to make that work as part of your budget. I know a lot of people do zero-based budgeting, which I think is excellent, because I think that is a good way to work into building in savings if you don't have very much at the moment. You know, making sure that every dollar has a purpose. So I know for a lot of people that works. I mean, I didn't really follow one particular plan. I think I read a lot of literature, and I just got a lot. I try to absorb as much as I can and find out what worked for me, because most of it, as I said, is for a US audience or a UK audience. So it didn't necessarily fit like the banking system in Hong Kong. So I kind of had to work around those boundaries. But it wasn't difficult. I think, like you said, it's about reframing and reshaping your mindset more than anything. Learning how to unlearn some bad habits.
Yes. And I'll be posting a video soon about that goal setting. I don't know if you remember us talking about that in our group. You know, did you set a goal? And whatever, and I plan to put the video deep diving into that topic a lot, because, you know, even in the business world, people talk about goal setting a lot, and you have to understand how to set a goal. But I think a lot of people are afraid to ask. You know, they don't really know how to set those goals and how to work towards them. So that's something that we'll be diving into more in our group, and also on YouTube, where I have my YouTube channel. I'll be posting those videos so that people, because I feel like people need the hands-on, like, this is how you do it, and I walk through, this is how you do it. So
I think
goal setting is very,
I think a lot of people have like these, and people have these like really great dreams. Like they think a goal is the same thing as a dream. Like, oh, I want to have a house, but they don't make it concrete or tangible in any way. Like they're not taught the process of how to break that goal down into manageable steps. I mean, certainly for me, it's something that I'm still learning. Like, you know, how can I make this achievable rather than just some sort of like pipe dream that, you know, oh, it's somewhere in the future, but not really knowing how to get there. And I think it's so important because that basically pulls a lot of people, it provides a lot of motivation, and it pulls a lot of people out.
Hey, Sharon, we got dropped. Are you there? So
I'm here.
saying that, you know, it pulls a lot of people.
It pulls a lot of people out of that trench of debt because it provides them with, you know, a lot of motivation. But also, if they know that there are manageable and achievable small steps, it becomes a lot easier to break that bad habit of, you know, the cycle of credit cards and so on, or you know, mindless spending. If you can say, oh, you know, well, we're only 4 months away from, you know, hitting this goal. If we save this much for the next 4 months, that becomes really real to a lot of people, and it becomes so much more doable. You know, they think, oh, this it's not that far away. You know, 3 months, 4 months, I can do it. And I think I wish, you know, this is something that is made a part of every school's curriculum. You know, financial education from an early age is so important. You know, I'm trying to teach my son. He is a much better saver than I ever was. You know, he's got the mindset. He has it down pat, and I'm really trying to make a concrete effort to make him aware of the importance of, you know, save early when you're young, and just get in that habit of just saving, even if it's like $50, $100, or a certain percentage of your salary, of your income, put it aside and just save it, and don't touch it, just save it. I mean, unfortunately now, I mean, in Hong Kong, I don't know what the situation is like in the States, but I'm reading a lot now that bank accounts are not doing high yield savings. You know, the interest rates are so low that you've kind of got to move from, instead of just putting it in a savings account, if you actually want to make money, you're going to have to look at other means of investment. So putting it into an investment account.
Oh no. So sorry about that, Sharon. We got cut off again.
Okay, no problem.
But go ahead and finish what you were saying.
Okay. So I think most people's, if they want to see their savings grow, I don't know if we're going to be able to be using high yield savings accounts. I think the interest rates right now are going to be fairly low. So I think in future, I mean, what I'm going to be looking at is how to put my money that I'm saving into an investment account. In fact, I've just opened up one in Hong Kong, and I've started putting my money towards that. I still have a savings account for my emergency fund, but in terms of like long-term savings, I don't think you can just stick it in a bank account anymore. I think you need to make it work for you. So it needs to be, you know, you need to be looking at investments and so on. Another thing that I'm looking at is also property. You know, even though the economy right now is not doing very well, I think in terms of the housing market, if you're in a situation to buy, certainly there are better bargains to be had at the moment. So this is another thing that I'm looking at.
So I think what you're saying is that because you are debt free, you're now able to work on some of those goals that you've been thinking of. First, your son's education. Then you're able to save more. I like that you said you were saving along the way, because definitely I'm an advocate for that. Saving along the way, even if it's just small chunks. And, you know, again, you know, I post all these videos, so you will hear me say that in videos as well, in, you know, just teaching those strategies. And so I hear that you're now able to achieve those goals, and that is awesome. And I
would definitely say, for anybody who is in their debt journey right now, if you haven't started saving, it's something that you should think about doing. You should definitely consider doing, just to build that habit. More than anything, it's about consistency. So even if you're just saving your pocket change, that's a start. You know, make a start on that, because it becomes a lot easier to save later on when you have money to save, when you have bigger amounts to play with. But it's about building a habit more than anything.
That sounds awesome. I was actually going to ask you if you have any encouraging words that you want to share with our viewers. So if you have anything else, go ahead and add it.
I would say definitely it's about do your research, you know, read up and make yourself financially literate. Reach out to communities that are, you know, trying to empower people about financial literacy. That's so important. I mean, there are no communities where I am. I had to look online, and that's how I found yours, Ruth. And I think, you know, putting yourself in a group with a lot of other people takes away a lot of the shame that people feel about debt and about money, because it isn't talked about. And especially if you are in a situation like, you know, if you're a single parent like I am and like Ruth is, you know, it's something that you need to consider, that you can't do it alone. We're not superwomen. We need the help of other women you know, for, even if it's just words, even if it's advice, encouragement, a shoulder to cry on, it's enough, just to pull you through times when you feel like you're not going to get through get out of that hole. So build that community around you. Find people who are like-minded. Don't be ashamed as well. You know, don't be ashamed of the decisions you have to make to help your family. You know, if you have to change schools, if you have to you know, buy from a thrift shop, if you have to, you know, buy from, you know, a cheaper shop, these things don't matter. At the end of the day, it's about, are you being healthy? Are you keeping your family safe? Are you building good habits? Because really the opinions of the people around you matter very little, especially now in this situation. We're going through COVID and this pandemic. A lot of people's financial blueprint will change. You know, and also I think a lot of what we see on social media is fake. You know, there's a lot that people don't show. They hide a lot about what their lives are really like. So don't try to keep up with people. You know, it's really about, at the end of the day, what do you have in mind for yourself? What does your future look like? Yeah, that's it.
Well, that sounds good. Thank you so much for joining today with this discussion. My hope and my prayer that this will inspire someone, that this will help someone.
I hope so too.
Yeah. Debt-free, especially single moms, because, you know,
yeah,
single mothers bear such a heavy load, so much load.
Yeah.
and
we are capable. We are capable of doing
Definitely.
so much. I think people underestimate how much we have achieved already. I mean, we are superheroes in disguise, but I think it helps when you have support around you. You know,
yes, definitely.
Yeah, you know, we learn from each other, and we help each other out. You know, at this time, I think we're seeing a great explosion in terms of people being aware of, you know, different things, you know, politics, gender politics, pay disparity, you know, things like this, they all come into play. And at the end of the day, you know, it's about making yourself a better person and doing what you love, you know, trying to find a job that gives you what you need, you know, in terms of that connection with other people, the pay, you know, satisfaction and so on. And I think, you know, we can achieve this when we are helping each other, talking to each other about this kind of stuff.
Yes, I love it. I love everything that you said. I agree with everything that you said. This has been a wonderful talk, I think. It was so.
Yeah, thank you, Ruth.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was so nice to hear your story, and hopefully one day you'll be able to come back on with us.
I would love to, yeah. And you know what, I thank you for setting up that group as well, because it's been really wonderful seeing how you know, other women have shared their journeys too. You know, I love seeing these stories and seeing, you know, what you've created. This is a great thing that you've done. And I'm hoping to do something similar here in Hong Kong, because there's just nothing like this here.
Yes.
And yeah, and it all starts with one person, right? You've done that for your community, and you've reached me on the other side of the world. I think that's fabulous.
Yeah, that's encouraging. Thank you so much for sharing that, because you never know. All you do is start,
right,
and hope that you'll make an impact, and you know, you just hope, you know, but you have to do what you feel inside is the right thing. So I know you're going to continue to do great things. I'm so happy and proud of you. Glad to have you as part of my group. You're an inspiration.
Thank you.
and just keep on this journey. Stay free.
Oh, well, it feels so much easier as well, knowing that that there are other people who are doing this alongside me. I don't feel like, even if I slip up, I feel like, okay, it's not going to be as steep a slope as it was before.
Right.
It will just be a stumble, and I'll just pick myself up and look back at the women who are around me who are doing the same thing.
Right. All right, so we'll wrap up here with our talk. Thank you so much for coming on, and I look forward to
Thank you so much for having me.
in our group.
And yeah, good luck, everybody. You guys, you got this. You can do it.
All right, take care now.
Take care. Thank you.
All right. So thanks again, everyone, for watching. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, go ahead and like this video and subscribe and come back for more, because we aim to empower you and encourage you to become debt-free, take control of your finances, and live a life that you decide that you want to live. That's all for me. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.